When you're standing in front of a gaming PC catalog, it's easy to feel a little overwhelmed. The headlines promise massive frame rates, instant load times, and a future-proof setup, but the reality of what you actually plug in, how hot it runs under a marathon session, and whether you're really getting the bang for your buck only becomes clear once you start testing it yourself. That's why I'm going to walk through the CyberpowerPC Gamer Xtreme VR the way a regular buyer would, looking at the day-to-day experience, the hidden trade-offs, and who this particular machine actually serves. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First, let's talk about the core promise. A high-end i9-10850K paired with an RTX 3070, all tucked behind a liquid-cooled chassis. On paper that sounds like a system built for 4K gaming and VR at max settings. The reality, however, starts with what you'll actually be plugging into. Most people buying into the V-Ready label have a headset, a decent monitor, and a couple of accessories like a mechanical keyboard and a gaming mouse. The Xtreme comes with Wi-Fi ready, which is convenient if your rig sits a few feet away from the router, but the built-in Wi-Fi is only a 802.11 AC module. If you're planning on a wired gigabit connection, for the most stable latency especially in competitive shooters, or when streaming while you game, you'll still need to run an Ethernet cable. That's a small extra step, but it's one many buyers forget because the spec sheet highlights the wireless capability. The 1TB NVMe SSD is another area where the value really starts to appear. In my tests, fresh installs of modern titles like Cyberpunk 2077 and Horizon Forbidden West booted in under 15 seconds, and level transition times were routinely under a second. That quick load time makes a noticeable difference if you're the type who likes to hop between games, or if you keep a large library of AAA titles installed. Compare that to a typical pre-built that still ships with a traditional HDD for storage. The SSD alone can shave minutes off your weekly gaming routine. However, the storage capacity isn't huge if you plan on keeping several 100 GB games installed simultaneously. You'll either need an external drive or a second internal SSD, which means opening the case again, something not everyone is comfortable with. Now for the cooling. The liquid cooler is meant to tame the i9's heat, especially when you push the CPU with overclocking or run a long VR session. In a 3-hour extended playtest of Assassin's Creed Valhalla at 1440p high settings, the GPU stayed around 70°C and the CPU hovered just under 80°C, which is comfortable. The fans were audible, but not overwhelming, more of a low-level hum you'd hear in a typical gaming room. If your space is already noisy, that's fine, but if you expect a whisper-quiet rig for a shared living area, you might want a custom fan curve or a different case. The liquid cooling loop adds a bit of maintenance risk, too. A minor leak could cause a costly repair, and while CyberPower offers a 1-year parts and labor warranty, the free lifetime tech support is more of a phone line than a prepaid service. So you're still on the hook for any hardware issues after that first year. Connectivity is decent, but not exhaustive. You get 3 USB-A ports on the front, 2 on the back, a single USB-C that's only for data not charging, and a few HDMI DisplayPort outputs that match the RTX 3070. For a typical gamer who wants a monitor, a capture card, and a headset, this is sufficient. However, if you're a streamer who needs multiple high-speed USB-C connections for external drives or a webcam, you'll find the ports a bit limiting and might end up reaching for a hub. That's not a deal-breaker, but it's an extra expense that shows up later. So, who should consider this machine? If you're a serious gamer with a decent budget, say $1,300 to $1,500, and you want a rear display system that can handle 1440p or entry-level 4K without diving into custom builds, the Xtreme hits a sweet spot. The i9 processor, while not the newest 13th gen chip, still provides a lot of headroom for future titles, and the RTX 3070 will keep you smooth on most current releases at high settings. The liquid cooling means you won't be throttling under long sessions, and the SSD ensures quick load times. It's also a good entry point for VR newcomers who don't want to tinker with water blocks or separate cooling rigs. On the flip side, you'd want to pass on this if you're a hardcore overclocker who plans to push the CPU far beyond stock clocks. The i9-10850K is already near the top of its generation, and the liquid cooler is tuned for stock or mild overclocking, not the extreme voltages you might see in a custom cooling loop. Also, if you already own a high-end workstation and just need a dedicated gaming rig, the value proposition weakens. You could likely get a comparable performance.